You know, so at that point it was like, all right, we have to put on a different kind of show now. And it's crazy because like this is the first tour ever where I was like, this is like an event.
Yes.
Like it's like a concert now.
Today we are capturing Knocked Loose in a moment in time. The band just released their third album, You Won't Go Before You're Supposed To, and the buzz has been unreal. So today we're capturing them on the last day of their headlining tour in support of this album. We're in St. Petersburg, Florida at Janice Live. Now they've gone from the humble beginnings as a DIY hardcore band all the way to the insane production that you're going to see tonight. And not only that, but they still have some of their closest crew from the beginning with them today, including Taylor Glasgow, who designed the stage tonight. So we're gonna chat with the crew, talk to the band, and figure out all the secrets that have made them one of hardcore's buzziest bands right now. Let's get backstage. Well, Kevin, first thing I really want to touch on, because I think it's such an interesting part of Knocked Loose, is the fact that you all have continued to grow to such massive points in your career. Your OG fans are still cheering you on like they did in day one and are so excited to see your growth and success. So why do you think you've been able to differentiate yourself in that way?
I think it's because we just keep writing what we want to write and like what we like listening to. So we didn't really go like the route of Brian starting to sing or, you know, like anything like that. We just kind of kept it heavy and like cool riffs, like fun riffs to play. We kind of incorporated like the chorus mentality to some songs, but it's still just like heavier riffs as the chorus, but like no singing or, you know, anything like that. We just stayed on like the path that is Knocked Loose.
We had a conversation, I remember very early on, even when I joined, it was kind of in a point in time where we were still figuring out like, not what we wanted the band to sound like, but kind of like our core values and ethics then. And I remember the conversation of like, we will never bend to, like, this is what the band is, this is what the band is going to be. If it works, great. If it doesn't, at least we gave it a shot.
It was really important to us when the shows became harder and harder to argue the barricade, because just for the record, we argue it every day.
Really?
Every show, not argue, but every day we try to get the barricade down, every day. But it is just like at a certain point, it's not gonna happen. Like venues aren't gonna do it. Certain stages are just too tall, you know?
Well, Nico, first and foremost, you know, you joined the band in 2020, and I'm curious, when you first joined, what surprised you the most about performing live with them?
Honestly, just how well I was able to mesh with the guys. I mean, I've known them for forever and we've been like really good friends. So whenever I first joined, the first show was kind of like a little bit shocking to me as far as like crowd participation and response. But I think like just how well that we all played together was more so shocking to me, because it kind of felt like I had always been in the band.
So you've had a lot to adapt to now, being in these shows where there are barricades, it's way bigger venues, there's a whole production now. Has that been sort of a shift for you to get used to?
Yeah, so like just learning how to perform from like a no barricade show to a barricade show, it's like just learning different ways on how to like interact with the crowd.
Yeah.
Just because like it's not so intimate, but I think like what this band really does and what I've kind of had to learn is like just to create an intimate atmosphere, even though there is that space between them.
You are still so involved. I mean, your crew has told me everyone in the band is still so hands-on, but at the same time, you can't necessarily do you can't DIY it all anymore. So how have you found that balance of maintaining that mindset that you want to have in the approach in building the show while also relinquishing some control?
Yeah, I mean, when it comes down to the actual stage setup, the designs and everything, like I said, Taylor is really the mastermind behind it. Brian had an initial idea, she ran with it, worked with a couple other like very talented people to help kind of craft this amazing stage.
I drew like a really terrible idea of what I would like the stage to be. And
I just imagine what the trees on that drawing looked like. It must
there
have been.
were no trees.
Oh, there were no trees.
Yeah, which
okay.
is super cool. Like the trees are like 100% Taylor's idea, and it was because like I was thinking too small. Like I was taking a lot of inspiration from Meshuggah. If you watch their set, like they do a lot of like layering with scrims, so that their stage has so much depth, but it's all just like really light scrims that can be carried on and off. So I drew like this whole thing, and it was all just like scrims, and I just wanted to like create depth. And Taylor was like, "What if we just had actual trees made?" And I was like, "We can't do that." And then she was like, "Yes, we can," and she did it. And it's cool. Like she found the company to do it, which coincidentally was also a company out of Louisville, Kentucky. So we got to like keep it local there. And yeah, it was crazy. She just got to like sit the band down and be like, "Here's what I want to do," and we were like, "Yeah, go for it, like do it." And then fast forward, when we were at rehearsals for this tour, like everybody's kind of working on like the tech side of things, and we're waiting like as the staging is showing up to the rehearsal facility so that we can see what it looks like. And then we had like a very big moment of like, everybody come in here and look at the stage, and like the cross was lit up and the trees were built, and it was like a very, very like crazy moment to like see it in full, and like all the work that went into it, like on Taylor's side and the companies that she worked with to get it where it is. It's every single night while I look at it, I'm like, this is insane. Like at least once during every set, I'm like, this is crazy.
So let's talk about these trees to start off your setup here.
So the trees were an idea kind of that Brian and I had together. He wanted to do like scrims with trees printed on them, and I was like, what if we just take it a step further and actually make trees? So my friend in Louisville actually made these. I didn't expect them to turn out as good as they did. My expectations were high in my eyes, but a lot lower than how these actually turned out. They look real, don't they? They turn out so good.
They look really
She's
good.
Super talented.
So where did the idea come from? Because obviously like this all matches the album artwork.
Right,
So it's all very cohesive. But then when were you like, yeah, hardcore bands have trees on stage
Yeah.
now?
So just kind of the aesthetic that Knocked Loose has taken over the last year of this like Southern Gothic, like their whole thing is like, we want to kind of come from where our roots are, which is Kentucky. There's lots of trees, lots of nature. That was their direction, and so I kind of went with that. And yeah, I just wanted it to look like from the crowd, like it's a never-ending forest. So that's kind of how we tied in the backdrop with it too. So when the lights are on, if it hits it a certain way, it does kind of just look like never-ending trees, never-ending darkness, which is actually kind of cool.
Yeah, there's so much dimension to the stage setup because you do have the trees on the backdrop and then actual trees.
Right.
And then, so talk me through the lighting strategy, because I see that there's lights that kind of beam onto the trees.
Yeah.
And that also looks very cool.
Thank you. So my whole thing going into this was I didn't want it to just be another show with lights and production. I wanted it to really focus on the set pieces. So lots of uplighting. I don't have a lot of like moving spots or anything. I just wanted everything to kind of be hidden. And it's neat because once the lights hit the trees, it's really shadowy, right? You don't see like every detail. but it makes it look spooky, I think. So
Yeah.
it worked out pretty well.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I think there's like a very, very fine line for this kind of stuff, because when you're talking about it out loud, it tends to sound kind of corny. It's like, that could turn out really lame, you know, like having
Yeah.
fake trees on stage. And I really just have to say that the artists, we had Ashton who did the trees, Ridge who did like the cabs and the backdrop. That's really what made the difference, right? Because if the trees turned out corny, then it wouldn't be as cool or spooky as it is now. But I think that's what it is like finding the right people. And they're extremely talented and made it look real. So like Ridge is a really big part of everything that Knockloose does. So anything like design-wise is all him. He kind of just like, I'll be like, Ridge, this is my idea. This is what I want it to look like. And like usually first try, he gets it down. So the stuff that comes on the LED screens, we originally were just gonna have them be set pieces. But again, I wanted it to look like a play, and like there's set changes throughout. And it gets kind of boring after like the 7th song. You're like, all right, I've seen everything on there. So bringing in the LED screens and having things built on them to kind of make it look like it's a part of the entire setup instead of just being a video that you watch.
Yeah.
I was like, maybe that kind of helps it, so it'll change throughout the set, and we'll have a window, or we'll have lightning, or we'll have a forest, or whatever. Yeah.
All right. Well, Alex, you are stage managing on this tour.
Yeah, that's a new thing for me. I'm normally their Knockloose European tour manager.
Yes.
And they wanted me to bring over here, so yeah, I'm a stage production manager on this North American tour. Yeah, this is a new thing for all of us.
Yeah.
I mean, I've toured in Europe with them many times, and we always had the basic setup. So I guess that's why I'm here, because we have like a really bigger production now. The band obviously grows up, so we have all the scenic, all the trees.
Yeah, for sure. But do you have a favorite part of the show for you, a standout moment?
My favorite part of the show is the actual show. And,
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've been touring with so many hardcore bands for 20 years now, and I started working with Knockloose 3 years ago. And to be honest, I was kind of skeptic, but then we became really close, and I became a fan of the band when I started working with them.
So as far as Knockloose, I could tell obviously you've worked in the music industry for a hot minute. What is specific to Knockloose that you think makes them like really special or interesting to work for?
Yeah, I would say the fact that they are extremely specific about their musical vision, and that bleeds over into everything. The look of the album artwork, obviously our production matching the album artwork, the interludes having a sort of feel that matches that visual representation. The tones that they're selecting are very sludgy, grimy. They're known for using the Swollen Pickle fuzz pedal that drives the 5150, which is sort of like a more classic death metal thing. It sounds just like a kind of like a car engine breaking down in real time, versus a little more of a clean drive sound, like something like Killswitch Engage, or more classic like true metalcore. This is supposed to be dark, dismal, hopeless, like very, very aggressive sounding. And they have honed in on that, everything down to the exact settings on all their amp clones in the Quad Cortex, the riffs they're playing, the notes they're choosing, the strings they're using, everything is related to that. And it's very rare to see an artist that is, I guess, so early in kind of like their peak development that is so specific and pulling it off so well. Right here we have a brand new vault that we just got this morning, actually. This is for all 3 players. We have Isaac main and backup, we have Nico main and backup, and we have Kevin Otten main and backup. The boys only play in 1 tuning, well, 2 tunings, but 1 guitar for the whole set. So it's pretty easy, honestly, maintenance-wise. Let's take a look at Nico's. This is an AZ. The guy's an Alpha Wolf, also play one of these, Sabian. 1 pickup, again, LA Custom Shop allows you to kind of customize what you're doing. We've got gold hardware, single saddles. These come stock on this model, but the colorway does not. Tortoiseshell pickguard, fake, obviously. Tortoiseshell's illegal now. We do not harm any animals, plus vegan. Single gold pickup, locking tuners as well, just like Isaac. 6 in line versus 4 and 3. Block inlays with pearl. And yeah, great lightweight guitar, recessed jack right here. 1 volley knob, just keep it simple, less parts to break, easy to play. And then Kevin's bass, same deal. They all went with kind of this like white pearloid aesthetic. This is a normal white pearloid over like a kind of an Olympic off-white. 5-string, so you get the low A, also in whole step down, A, D, G, C, F. And then 2 jazz pickups. Hardware's a little rusted. I'm getting new ones. I don't want to see any haters online. Getting a lot of flack for that on the Premiere Guitar video. I ordered new parts, don't worry. Block inlays as well. So everyone's got a really cool matching, kind of very classy, gold, white pearloid, kind of a classic look, which is a cool contrast to their sound, I think. This thing is freaking monstrous heavy. You want to feel that?
Oh boy, let's go. Oh my God!
It's got to weigh at least 9 to 10 pounds.
That is the heaviest bass I've ever held.
That's a heavy
Not
tone,
that I've held a lot of bass guitars, but
heavy guitars for heavy riffs.
For sure.
Yeah. These are great, man. 7 strings, super critical to Knocked Loose's sound. They play in the corn tuning, which is a whole step down. So A, D, G, C, F, A, D. They play a lot of like power chords, which is kind of unusual for hardcore. Normally people are playing like a drop tuning.
So is the 7-string the key to sounding as heavy as freaking possible?
It absolutely is.
And something I've noticed, even just upon sound check, we haven't even gone to the show yet, but everything sounds so incredibly heavy live. Like, yes, the album is heavy, but it's like another tier to hear it all live. So is there anything that you personally are doing to adapt the songs or up the ante, if you will?
Kind of, I guess, just setting my own tone on my gear, like my quad cortex and stuff, and like, I don't know, just making it sound heavy.
It's all feel for me. I am playing to a metronome, but it really is all feeling, and I feel like the big parts I try to move and hit as if it were a big part. You know, I guess at a certain point the mics are only going to pick up so much and it's just going to sound the same no matter what. But in my mind, I feel like, oh, this is a big moment. It feels like a big moment to me. Hopefully that translates to if anyone's watching me play, if any drummers in the crowd are watching me, they're like, oh, he's really driving with this part right now. So hopefully that gets received.
In this tour in particular, like we've added a lot more like tracks and production, like as far as like audio production goes. But I think like Isaac and I like really crafted our tones for this tour to make it way more impactful. And a lot of it also has to do with Matt, our front of house. He's like insanely good at his job. So he definitely helps us like dial in the heaviness that we need.
First of all, shout out Matt Andrews, who was our front of house, who is a wee young Canadian lad, who simply destroys the front of house mix. Like, he has slaughtered it. It's truly amazing. He really does a lot, and he like analyzes the record and analyzes other live shows, and we'll give like some tips and pointers and whatever, but he really does nail it.
All right, well, Matt, you are handling front of house, so you've got a pretty important job to make Knocked Loose sound as heavy and amazing as possible, yeah?
Absolutely, yep.
So we're standing in front of your console.
Yes.
So tell me a little, first of all, what your job entails.
My job is mixing the sound that the audience hears. Front of house is the correct term for it. Yeah. That's pretty much it.
So in terms of mixing, so that means the different levels of all the instruments and all of that. So are there any tips or things that you do specifically for Knocked Loose for the kind of sound that they have?
Yeah, so what we're trying to do with the band is we're trying to recreate the record sound as much as possible live. So what we're doing is we take a bunch of gear that they use on the record and implement it into a live setting. So like these compressors, all of these are stuff that they use in the record.
So what exactly do these add to the sound that fans would hear on a record?
They create analog distortion, which is really important. It just adds like the crispiness to the mix, makes things sound better. There's things that you can do with these that you wouldn't be able to do without it. So I feel like sometimes it gives me a bit of an edge in terms of my mixes. And it just allows me to be more creative and have more control over things, which is the most important thing.
Also, I think that there's just something to be said about us just being able to play all the songs really well just by jamming them. They're not super reliant on tracks. They're not super reliant on all these things. We've added some of it to beef it up, but it's PacSun hits his drums really hard on record because he actually hits his drums that hard, and then we do a good job of like trying to recreate the tones of the record as best we can, to just try to be like as obnoxious as possible, as obnoxiously heavy as we can. That's the point, is for it to sound, for every individual thing to be insane on its own. So when you put it all together, it becomes truly crazy. And then you add the light show and you add the front of house mix on top of that, and it just becomes wild.
Yeah. And in terms of Knocked Loose, how is that working with them sort of fueled your creativity and that kind of collaboration with them?
It's amazing. They kind of let me do what I want in terms of the mix. And it really just lets me kind of flex my creative muscles, I guess. They're always open for me to add new stuff, and they are always wanting to expand their sound.
Right.
They don't want to be stuck sounding the same every single time. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to create the best mix possible for them as we keep going.
What is it about working with Knocked Loose and like this camp that has been sort of different for you from anything else you've done?
The push for the family vibe is very different from other camps that I've been on. The camaraderie, it feels as though any issue that we ever run into isn't really an issue, but just more of a conversation. And I think that getting with everybody early, having everybody, communicate any of their issues early so we can nip them in the bud kind of helps a lot of the stress on a tour, really.
This show being the biggest production they've had for a headliner, how has the dynamic of putting a show together like this and sort of the scale growing changed as you've started working with them?
When I first started working with them, I joined them on the tail end of a tour. They did a direct support for Bring Me the Horizon last year. Or not last year, I guess that was 2 years ago.
I feel that.
2 years ago, and I came into, we had a broken down bus, some crew issues, kind of just grew from that being like one bus, small camp vibes. We didn't even have enough people to fill the bunks in the one bus, to now we're 2 buses and a semi-truck full of gear.
Yeah.
We've got backline techs. The band is no longer directly responsible for setting up their stuff. They fought that too. I do want to point that out too. They very much fought having extra crew. They really wanted to be DIY for as long as they possibly could, but we finally got to a point where they want to put a show, they want to make a show good for everybody that's attending the show. They want to bring a product that they can essentially showcase and be like, the fans deserve a show that's more than just a couple amps and a drum kit.
All right, well, we're here with you, Sean, and you are handling monitors and playback,
Yes.
which are two things who fans may not really know what that means. So let's start there.
So I mix the sound that the band hears, and not only what the band hears, but what the crew hears. And that means that while the front of house engineer is doing a single mix for the crowd, I'm actually doing 8 mixes. 1 for every member of the band, 1 for myself, and a guest mix and a crew mix. Yeah.
So who has like the most weird or craziest mix, or just like something that'd be surprising for fans to hear?
Well, I mean, it's just different aesthetics. I don't think anyone's mix is weird, but PacSun wants to hear the drums really clearly. Isaac kind of wants it to sound like a record, so it just sounds exactly like a record might sound to you. And Brian wants it to feel like a live show. So we have crowd mics that you might see up on stage where I'm trying to, if the band members want, for it to feel like they don't even have ears in it at all. Part of that is that I mic the crowd and I pipe that into especially Brian's ears.
And so this is the interesting thing, because coming from sort of this DIY hardcore space where Knocked Loose is in or from, there's that debate of in-ears and being genuine with the crowd and being connected. So how do you find that balance between their roots and their approach, but also the fact that they are on such huge stages now and need these things?
Everyone just wants to be able to hear as clearly as possible so that they can play together as clearly as possible. And when you get in-ear monitors involved, it's like you're doing stuff and there's a level of clarity that's possible with wedges, especially on a really loud stage like theirs.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you go to ears, and all of a sudden it's like, Nico's on this side of the stage and he can hear Isaac so clearly. So like all of a sudden the guitars are just locked and vocals become more locked in, and everyone can just hear obviously kick snare is always blasting through a wedge, but like they can hear every little nuance of what PacSun's doing a lot more clearly. And it's just all about like, we want to create the best performance we possibly can for everyone. And really just in-ears just brings them up farther.
Do you feel like having people close to you that you trust so much and crew that's been with you for so long helps give you the confidence that the way your show's being built is as authentic as possible to how you want it to feel?
Yeah, I really do. I think that in lots of ways we got pretty lucky on this run because this is our first time taking the amount of crew that we have. You know, we have a good amount this time. We
So
have,
like 40 something through the whole tour?
Yeah, a lot for the whole tour, and for us specifically, I mean, we travel with like, I think it's like 16 or 17 people in our crew, and in general, just like counting us, but like we got 3 different, people for lighting, and then we got video and text and all this, and we just felt there's so much riding on this tour, a bigger production than we've ever done, and we were just so blessed and thankful that no one sucked or had an ego, or no one really rubbed anyone else the wrong way. Everyone really has like gotten along amazingly and is so hardworking and so kind and respectful, and also just a blast to hang out with.
Yeah.
Like the whole vibe, I'm sure you can kind of tell just with everything, but the vibe with the whole KL crew is just super positive, and we needed that.
I mean, first and foremost, the techs and everybody that are making sure that the show operates it the way it's supposed to are just in good moods all day.
Everyone's happy.
Everyone's happy. They like their job. We have people that are well into their craft, and when you're able to create a positive vibe or even just a positive camp in the background, like, it makes the techs' lives easier, and therefore they want to do more to make the show even better. When everybody's good and nice to each other, it's easy for the techs to want to go even outside of their job description to make sure that the show gets better. I think I'm the first true guitar tech that they've had, and they'll still come over and be like, "Oh no, dude, I'll grab the guitar. Don't worry about it." And I'm like, "Give me something to do,
Yeah.
Get your money's worth," kind of thing. But it's great to see that they're willing to pitch in. They love being hands-on, and we kind of feels more collaborative, which I really enjoy. We each play our part.
And so you're pre-programming a lot of it before the tour. So then what actually gets done on this board? If you could show like kind of what some of the controls do and what you're using.
Since I do control a lot of it, I have like these little buttons, right? Make things pop on and off. That's really what it is. I'll just make an effect, I'll put it on a button, and then if I think it will look cool in a certain part of the song, I'll hit it. So we have like throw buttons over here. And then we have artist lighting right here. So if I want Brian to be lit up a little bit more, there's some side wash that I can put on him. I also have spots made for PacSun on the drums. Again, I wish you could see it, but it like reflects off of his drum set. It's really cool. Yeah, so just stuff like that to kind of set the mood. When there's crowd interaction, obviously none of that is pre-programmed because it changes every night. So there's a lot of that, like blinders, and when they ask for a circle pit, I'll put blinders on the crowd so they know what to do.
So there's a bit of improv too, depending
Yeah,
on
it's
just
a lot
what
of
happens. Yeah.
That's what makes it fun, otherwise I'm just hitting a button, sitting on my phone.
Oldham County is such a huge part of your identity and ethos as a band too. I mean, it's still on your band t-shirts to this day, and it always has been part of your merchandise and just the general theming of the band, if you will. So how has that remained with you now?
I guess just like keeping it at home. I mean, because like when we practice in Louisville or Oldham, we go to Isaac's parents' house, and it's like in his garage. Yeah, still like, I mean, when we do rehearsals for tours, like we'll go down to like Nashville or something, but if we're at home and we're all in Louisville and we're like, hey, we should get together and practice, we go to Isaac's parents' house in his garage that's like probably about as big as this room, and we have like bass cab, guitar cab, and like older drums for PacSun to use, and we just practice in there.
Wow.
So it's still like home-based in Oldham County.
And I think over the last couple of years, we've wanted to kind of like lean into it more. It's subtle, but I know some people have like asked me about it. We've started to like, there's like little country Easter eggs, like whether it be sound clips or whether it be like even lyrics that I use or like terminology that I use that just kind of like brings us back to where we're from, you know, and like what we're, like an atmosphere that we're all very, very familiar with.
I think it's just how we all grew up. It was just small town, you know, suburbs of Louisville, Kentucky. There wasn't really, I mean, when I moved to Kentucky, there was no scene in Oldham County. I think Brian has been to shows in Oldham County, and by the time I moved, that was just like long gone. Everything was downtown. So I think the idea was, oh, nothing really happens here. Nothing really comes from here. If we are the representatives of that, maybe it'll inspire, at least I'm taking it as like maybe the younger kids that we would have went to high school with, they're like, oh, cool, I can be in a band. And like, I've got a little brother, he's in his first band. And they're in our old van, like hitting the road and doing the whole thing. And that came from seeing an older brother give it a go and in the middle of nowhere, Kentucky, you know?
Yeah. And too, like with being so heavy, what I love is that you've gone into these mainstream spaces but never compromised that.
Yeah.
And as of right now, like as we're recording this, you've played Bonnaroo, Coachella, what was the other one? Lollapalooza. Yeah. Like there's just so much. So when you go into those settings where you're crossing paths with artists of different genres who may or may not understand the heavy thing, has it helped hone your identity and approach to your music in any way, or have you learned anything from those experiences?
Yeah, I would say so. Like, I think, like I mentioned previously, like, I think one of the things that I really like about this band is just that, like, we're always going to play the same show. We're always going to, like, play as hard as possible. But, like, I think being the black sheep on the mainstream festivals has like helped us like be like, okay, let's just step up and just be ourselves and see how the reaction goes. And the reaction is always awesome. So
we want to be known for like who we are and what we are. Yeah. And I feel like if we were to bend that for, you know, the Coachellas or the Lollapaloozas or the Suicide Boys tours, then that kind of does not take away from what we set out to do, but we are who we are and we're doing what we're doing. And I feel like if like it's bound to land with some people and maybe not everybody, but those that it does land for, if they start coming back, then we play a bigger show next time we come through wherever. And
I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, I still play a show like it's kind of any other show. I mean, if it's a big show, you get the preset nerves and kind of stuff, but like I'm usually pretty chill before a set and I go up there and just play again and like just have fun with it. There's no like really big difference with how I'm playing, I guess. I don't know. I just kind of played because, you know, I love playing. So I'm not like looking at how big the crowd is or like anything like that. I'm just like, all right, I'm riffing.
I don't think it's changed fundamentally who we are or anything, but I do think it's allowed us to learn how to navigate new environments, you know, whereas we don't sacrifice. It's not like we would ever change our set list to play a different, because I mean, what soft songs do we have? You know, so it's like, it's not like people could be like, oh, I wonder if they're gonna play the soft set for Coachella, you know, because it's like, we don't got it. No. But at the same time, like, there is a specific way to talk to people that maybe don't recognize a hardcore show as a hardcore show.
You gotta tell them to buckle up.
Yeah, you gotta tell them to buckle up, but, well, yeah, and also there's different ways to interact with a crowd, you know, and we need to learn how to navigate those ways, because if people aren't beating the shit out of each other, you know, that's not the norm for everything. I still want people to be able to enjoy the show and feel energized and feel scared, but a part of it and excited without, you know, if they don't want to mosh or anything, that's their prerogative, but it's important to me that everyone is involved. The real answer is that those shows, I say this about Coachella specifically, but all three, especially Coachella and Bonnaroo, were like two of the craziest sets that we've ever played. And that's us comparing it to hardcore shows that we've played, you know. Coachella was a literal no barricade, stage dive, crazy. I mean, it felt like a hardcore show to us. It had every single thing that would identify it as that.
I think it did, in a sense of like, it made us want to just like lean into us, you know, like
defy it even further.
Yeah, and then there were several situations where we would be on bills where we were the black sheep, and you would see that people would be like very, like other artists and other crew were just like very excited about that. Like we were on tour with Suicide Boys, and we were the only band on the tour, and like their crew was like so excited to watch a band every night, and it kind of just like made us feel like bringing people in can happen from like all walks of life, not just like metal people, you know.
And that's really exciting here when there's sort of that elitist mindset around metal where it's like, no, everyone's welcome in.
Yeah, definitely. And if anything, it just helps it, you know. So like, it just made us want to lean into being us.
And the thing is too, you were talking about like the barricade situation, and you've managed to keep the fan connection intact even with that space between you. So what is the strategy in terms of keeping that visceral like give and take with the audience in these bigger settings now?
I think that's a really good question, and I think that a lot of it extends beyond the stage. Like something that Knocked Loose has always done is tried to remain approachable, and like speaking from my own like personal experience, like I have like the worst like resting bitch face on earth. So I may not always look approachable, but we just always, like the cool thing about hardcore is there was never a divide between you and the people on stage. You just like feel equal, and you feel like the crowd is just as important as the performance itself. So when things got this big, it was important for us to just like remain like normal people, you know, like you'll see us walking around, you'll see us watching other bands, you'll see Isaac moshing for other bands, like, so
Change your humanity.
Yeah, and I think that still allows people to feel like they're a part of it, you know.
Gosh, honestly, for me, I was talking with someone about this the last few days. I give that to Brian, Nico, and Isaac all day. They know how to engage and work with a crowd. For me, hey, I'm just in my back little pocket playing my parts, but I give that to them all day. They have found a way with a barricade to still get people involved and engage and having everyone participate as part of the live show.
Yeah.
And I think they do a great job of making that happen.
Playing a barricade show versus no barricade show is like different in its own way, but you still kind of playing the same. But like if no barricade, you know it's going to be crazier.
Right.
But you can still have a crazy show if there's a barricade. It just depends on if the crowd is willing to like give that energy, even though they can't get up there like do anything like that. So, and like luckily they usually are.
Honestly, just playing way harder and talking to the crowd a little bit differently, being like a little bit more like I don't know, like more commanding, I suppose. But that's definitely something I really admire about like Brian and Isaac. They're so good about it, and I'm kind of just like leaning into that. So
yeah, and something too that is very unique with Knocked Loose is the fact that you've completely defied the stereotype of selling out. You know, you've gotten so much bigger, but you've remained heavy, and your OG fans are just cheering you on, so stoked to see the level of success you're reaching. Why do you think that's been possible?
We've been getting this question a lot with the new record. Like, I feel like every time we drop a new record, people expect some kind of like dramatic heel turn, and every single time we're like, hey, it's not gonna happen. Like, there's no reason it would. And I think with the last couple years, like some of the opportunities that we've been given, like Coachella and Bonnaroo, and like that had everybody talking about like, okay, here it comes, like the sellout is happening. Right. So it kind of made us just want to like lean into being extreme, you know? And like the most bare bones version of this answer is that when we started to write this record, we acknowledged within our band that we wanted to introduce a little bit more song structure. So like this record has your very first ever like Knocked Loose choruses in songs like Don't Reach For Me and Sit and Mourn and Piece by Piece. But then we knew going into that we wanted to juxtapose that with our craziest songs. And so then you have songs like Thirst and Moss Covers All and Take Me Home, and like that was just our way of like keeping the scales balanced and not leaning too far into like, oh, Knocked Loose is going for radio now. It's like, no, we're still going to be extreme, and we might like try to bring that extreme measures to a more palatable audience, but you're still going to always have like the chaos.
I think that it's just, a lot of it is just people realizing that as far as the DIY aspect goes, as far as all of that, as far as the music goes, there hasn't been a lot of sacrificing there. There really hasn't been a lot of switch up. We've made an adamant choice to not sell ourselves short and not change up. You know, everything that we've done creatively has been for the benefit of you know, what we think the band should be, you know, and what we think the band should be is a really, really heavy, intense band, you know, it's influenced by metal and hardcore and all this stuff, and so we've never wanted to sacrifice heaviness for anything. I do see people, you do still get people all the time that are like, I miss this or I miss that, but I think that because of how little we've sacrificed, it's really easy for us to like not take that seriously, because we in the band know how adamant we are about maintaining what we've had the whole time, you know? So it's like, I would know better than anybody else. It's really funny, you know, if I ever see like, oh, I saw them in 2017 and they totally sold out. And I was like, bro, I've been there the whole time. And I swear to God, that has not happened once. Yeah. So like, a lot of people are gonna see growth in general and just perceive it as selling out, which I guess I can understand to an extent, but as far as the like integrity of the band, the integrity of the music and the shows, it's like we've never switched up. Like we're still taking out hardcore bands, putting them on huge stages. That's still the music that we love. It's still the music that we sound like. So it's like we know that there's been very little change.
I just do think like we set it in stone almost 10 years ago, and I think it's cool that we have stuck to that, and it's being received the way it has been. Some people are upset
we're not looking at
that that we have gotten past, you know, playing Crowbar in Tampa or something like that, which honestly we would still and go do. You know, we were just talking about Midnight Hour. That is a 400 cap record store in Southern California. Like we did it, what, last month? A month and a half ago?
Very recently.
We're not afraid of it, but.
Yeah, well, I suppose at some point the crowd gets a little unmanageable though when everybody's banging on the door to get in.
Oh my God,
you want to be able to accommodate as many fans as you can.
Of course.
That's the goal, isn't it?
Gosh, yeah, there were people watching from literally outside the door.
I know. I felt bad going in. I was like, uh-oh.
Yeah, honestly. But we'll do stuff like that.
You've been sort of like a gateway band for new fans to come into hardcore, like in introducing people who may otherwise have not listened to heavy music to your music. So how does the diversity of your audience and having both OG hardcore fans and new people coming in kind of shifted the vibe of your shows?
I think for the better, honestly, because it's you know, newer people in the genre versus older people in the genre, kind of like, not like clashing, because that's like a bad word to use, I guess, but like kind of
coming together.
Yeah, exactly. And like maybe some of the older fans in hardcore, like hopefully showing the newer kids like cooler band stuff, or like seeing them at the shows, they're like, oh cool, like it's cool to see you here, come to this show too. And it's like a, you know, maybe a 300 cap hardcore venue kind of thing. Like they're like coming together, kind of, you know, solidifying a bigger hardcore space for these cities. Like,
there's people that come to Knocked Loose shows that I feel like Knocked Loose is the only heavy band that they listen to. You know, like there's straight up I'm just like, oh, that's just like a normal citizen. It's like not even, that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's not like even an alternative person. It's just like, you know, through lots of different means, whether it be, you know, whether it be Spotify playlists or a TikTok or a YouTube video or whatever, like they found it and now they're here. And I don't really care how they got here, because the point of the tour and the point of the show is to get people more involved and to get people to be more involved with the bands that we're supporting and to be involved with people to expose people to their local scenes and get them involved in those.
How are you feeling about like the show tonight? What are you looking forward to?
I'm totally excited. I'm just excited for how the crowd's gonna be. I'm hoping it's gonna be really rough.
Tonight, is there something you're most looking forward to or a song you want to hear live?
The Knocked Loose call out, because we've been dying to see that shit live and Deep in the Willow. That and then the reggaeton breakdown and Suffocate. I'm gonna be throwing ass to that shit. I'm sorry, but I really will be.
So you saw Knocked Loose on Warped Tour 2016-ish.
Yeah, like the last year of Warped Tour.
Yes, and they've grown and changed so much since then.
It was the smallest stage. It was the Ernie Ball stage, tiny ass crowd, and like watching them go on tour across the country and stuff, you just see them grow. And now they're like topping Taylor Swift on charts and stuff. And I'm just like,
Knocked Loose, right? Like, is this a bit of a gateway into hardcore for you then? Or
They were totally the gateway drug. They were like the first hardcore band I ever listened to, and they're kind of what got me into Kublai Khan, you know, stuff like that. So
their sound has changed completely. They're still the same guys and everything like that, but just like watching them grow, like I'm so happy to see that, because it was those stages on Warped Tour, tiny, and like just going from something like that where like sometimes things don't work out and like all that, but now they're doing like these massive productions, and the tours just are getting better and better and better.
fan reaction wise, is there one that's the craziest?
Gosh.
Hard to say, but.
That is hard to say, because we have structured the set to have moments kind of throughout the set too. I definitely notice the Mistakes Like Fractures sing-along definitely pops. And everyone loves Counting Worms, of course.
Yes. Well,
So that's always been a big hit. And we've been doing this Wall of Death for Everything Is Quiet Now at the end of the set. And people are eating that up. It's been phenomenal. Like people are listening to, like I said, Brian and Isaac saying, split this place down the middle. One of my favorite moments.
It's the last breakdown, and that's because I yell at them before it. Like I yell at them directly. Because,
You're good at telling people what to do.
Yeah, well, it's not only that. At that point, we're like an hour into the show, or like an hour and 5 minutes into the show. So people, even for the last two songs, which are big songs, they get a reaction, but you can tell people are just kind of like, dude, like it's like an hour, and you know, it's like 10:40 and I want to go to bed or whatever. So at the end of the set, I have like probably a 30 to 40 second long speech where I'm just like, hey, I realize that there's a lot of you that are having a great time just standing there and not doing anything, but like, come on. Like, I'm just like, let's get real here. Don't be boring. I was like, and then I'm like, you got like one more shot to not be boring, so you might as well do it. And
People
then,
love a challenge.
yeah, and then they're like, and then it's like everyone nudges their friend. They're like, well, okay, I guess one last thing will be fine.
How do you hope fans leave the show feeling?
I hope that they feel as connected to us as we feel to the crowd, because when we play, we kind of just leave everything out on the stage, and if the crowd feels the same way, then that's all I ask.
I hope they leave exhausted, because they went crazy the whole time.
True.
It's asking a lot, but
Just don't go to the gym before a Knocked Loose show, right?
yeah, or just like inspired to like start their own band or something, you know, or like get involved in their own community. Like, I hope that they walk away like fans of new bands. Like, we always try to create like a pretty diverse like lineup, and hopefully like bring things that like we're passionate about that our fan base hasn't heard. Hopefully they can walk away with like new bands to listen to, and from there like dive into those bands' favorite bands and just like keep digging, you know.
Realistically, I think that this tour is the culmination of years worth of effort, you know, recording the album and writing it, And so it feels so cathartic to get it out there, but at the same time, this is just the first one. You know, we're going to tour for years after this, and so if anything, people are just kind of seeing the start of what this new era is.
That's what it feels like.
Yeah.
It feels like it's all just...
Yeah.
Every time we pull off something cool, the whole tour, I'm just like, all right, what's next?
Yeah.
It just like gets me fired up, and like been having a lot of conversations with Taylor, like conceptualizing like how to make it bigger, you know, like what that means, and like there's stuff on the lighting side that I'm not even familiar with that she's like teaching me about, and I'm like showing her like hundreds of live videos of bands and just being like, we could do something like this, and like it's really cool. It's exciting too. It's very exciting.
Burdened by our connection, I long for separation.